Pre-Symposium Panel where we're talking about leading adoption in a change environment. We have an upcoming executive symposium on October 26th. We're hosting it at Accenture from 6 to 8:30. Would love to see you there. It'll be in Houston. And yeah, what we're here to talk about is what we found to be effective for leading adoption in a change environment. Not to say things are going bad, not to say things are going good, but what we're finding is that a lot of businesses are making pivots right now. And as leaders, we're trying to figure out what is the best way to incorporate our teams on the decision-making process, on the change management process, on just getting buy-in when we do need to make pivots, because we know that habits can be hard to change sometimes, especially if you become acclimated in doing work in a certain way. So I'm Garrett. I'm the founder of Ambition in Motion. At Ambition in Motion, our vision is a world where the vast majority of people are excited to go to work. When they are there, their expectations meet reality. And when they come home, they feel fulfilled. And we believe that starts with leaders, because leaders create the experiences that employees have while at work. And so we create technologies and communities to empower leaders to be their best selves at work and with their teams. And one of the ways that we build that community is through our executive symposiums. And so here are three fellow leaders that will also be at our executive symposium in a couple of weeks. We've got Tonya, Damian, and Lily. Tonya, do you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Tonya Pullen. I'm the VP of Marketing and Sustainability, and glad to be here.
Very cool. Damian, how about yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Damian Mobley. I'm CTO. I've been doing so for close to 30 years now, and it's great to be here as well.
Awesome. And Lily, how about yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Lily Bain, and I am the Vice President of Client Services at a company called Help. Our parent company is WNS and worldwide. And I've been in the managed care market for about 25 years now, 26 years.
Perfect. Awesome. So let's dive in. So the topic here is leading adoption in a change environment. As leaders, when your organization has had to make a change, maybe make a pivot, maybe make an adjustment to the way business has been done, what have you found to be effective for implementing that change and getting everybody to buy in versus what have you found to be not effective? I'd love to learn just what are some of the good strategies you found to be that worked really well, and what are some things that you've seen that maybe didn't work as well in your experience when organizations need to make change?
I'll go ahead and start. So for me, it's really, well, first of all, transparency, letting everyone know why the change is happening. But I think in terms of implementing a change, for me, I find it best when I give some ownership to my employees, where they have a say in the decision and the process and the change, and how we as a department, it may be a company-wide change, but as a department, how we implement that change. I want them to have a say in it, so they have a sense of ownership in it. And of course, it always starts with me. If I want to make a change, or if there's a change that needs to be made, I need to be the first one to do that change. So it's not do as I'm doing, so it's not do as I say, it's do as I do. But for me, that's the best process, is to give them a sense of ownership and help them let them come to the table with solutions.
And so vice versa, would you say the opposite is a bad way of doing it, where perhaps maybe a leader thinks, you know what, I'm going to take all these factors that are being thrown at me, I'm going to make this decision in an isolation chamber and say, team, we're going forth with this decision. This is the decision I made, push through and carry on, and hope that everyone follows through. Would you say that's like a bad way of implementing?
I'm not necessarily going to say that's a bad way, unless you're not giving them the reason why. There are some managers out there that may say, we're making this change, and if people start asking questions, it's because we were told to do it. That is a bad way to do it, in my opinion.
Okay, very cool. Damian, Tonya, what are your thoughts on what are effective ways for implementing change versus ineffective ways for implementing that change?
Well, for me, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think for larger companies, it's harder to always be able to get the insight of your employees to see if they're going to accept the change. So I think in ensuring, one, your leaders are committed to the change and understanding what the larger strategy is, and then making sure that you're holding meetings and giving clear communication Also, I think your leadership teams have to model the priorities, right? They have to have that buy-in and resources available to share that change. And I think you've also got to have some type of leadership skill to manage resistance, right? You always have those employees that just are not going to be on board. They're scared of change. And so I agree with Lily on you've got to be able to give them the whys, and you've got to understand and get the team involved so that everyone understands that change is going to happen.
And what have you found to be an ineffective way for doing this? I guess maybe would you say the opposite is true, where if you don't convey that why, that the employees will resist it, are more apt to resist the change?
I don't know that they will resist it, but I think that there will definitely be, I guess there would be consequences that would happen because that's a hard one.
Okay, I'll come back to that because there's some. Yeah, jump in, Lily.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, I think that may result in some friction, some team friction, which is you never want that, because it leads to inefficiencies and people not wanting to do their work.
Yeah, that's the thing, is you'll get people that are earning a paycheck at that point and just doing what they're told. I want to take it a step further, though, in terms of, now I'm in technology, and technology is always the kind of the stepchild of budget, right? We are the expense line. We are the ones that cost the most. And, there are studies out there, several of them, that basically say digital transformation by and large is a failure. If you look at some of the numbers, we're talking, $30-40 billion a year in waste. And so, kind of going back to what Tonya said about getting other people to understand and buy in, the key factors, according to a study in McKinsey, it was very interesting. I have my note right here. So if the management team established a clear change story for transformation by management team, CEO and down, 3.1 more times likely for a digital transformation to succeed. So I think that's a very poignant, thought, that people outside of your group need to buy in order for it to work. And, if you're keeping things within your department and that just trust me, generally it's going to fail.
Man, Damian, you bring up a really interesting point, because okay, well, there's a few things. Gosh, there's so many good points that y'all brought up. But Damian, the first part about digital adoption and transformation gets in 3.1 times increase when the executive team is on board. So if I'm hearing you right, a lot of times when digital transformation is happening, you have the executive teams like, yeah, sure, I'll budget for you to, do this thing. I'm not going to do it myself, but hey, go off and prosper. You can do it. And everybody else who's looking for guidance from their executive team is like, okay, cool. Are you doing this? And what you're saying is that a lot of the executive teams are not. And so it's really hard to get that buy-in from everybody else if those that you look to for leadership and guidance aren't actually adopting it themselves. Is that correct?
That's right. And it really comes down to their understanding, and it's on us. It's incumbent on us. I'm kind of a firm believer in the whole extreme ownership thing, right? Where your team members need to believe in the possibility of success. They don't necessarily need to be on board with the goal, but they need to know that it can succeed. And then they need to be supported with all of the tools and training necessary, and then comes accountability, right? And I think that, along with, again, as Tonya said, getting external factors on board are a good recipe for success. If you don't have that, it does end up being spaghetti against a wall, and maybe it'll stick. And that spaghetti is usually very expensive. So
that's interesting. It seems like y'all are touching on this one kind of core point about adoption and getting people to buy into change. I think one thing I've observed, just because our team works, we do executive programs, we also have higher ed programs too. And one thing I see a lot of times in higher ed is there's a lot of students that are afraid to raise their hands and ask questions and just you know, say, hey, what do you mean by that? Or clarify what's going on. And I think that potentially that scenario where maybe students are less comfortable with asking questions to clarify maybe what the professor is asking them to do transcends into the workplace. Because what I'll often see happen in a change management scenario is an executive or an executive team will say, hey, we're going to start rolling out this technology, or we're going to start rolling out this new change, or we're going to start rolling out this new initiative. And there's a lot of people that are like, yeah, we're in, totally sounds great, I'm on board with it. And then when it comes to the actual implementation, some of them are either knowing what's going on and are purposely sabotaging it because they're like, I'm not doing this. Like, you know, no, they won't notice that I'm not actually following along, or they have no idea what was being asked of them and they're too afraid to ask questions to clarify what they need to do because they are afraid of looking stupid by asking questions. So how do you handle a scenario like that to ensure that your team understands really the dynamic of what's happening here? Does that question make sense?
People flying under the radar, you mean?
Flying under the radar, or not being clear as to what is being asked of them, but saying yes anyways because they don't want to look stupid in front of their leadership.
Ask specific questions. If they're not asking questions, ask questions of them. That's, you know, that's probably my best asset as a leader, is understanding the right questions to ask and when to ask them. And you know, there is that, hey, you got to be here, you're getting a paycheck, you know what you're doing, I'm treating you like a professional. So there's an expectation from the start that they're participating, and if they're not asking questions, then I'm asking questions of them.
Lily, Tonya, what are your thoughts on that question?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Damian. And you know, my philosophy, like, I always want my team members to speak up. And I know that's something that is carried on all the way up through our CEO is speak up. It kind of goes back to this thing I learned in 7th grade, which was like, when in doubt, shout it out. You know, you always want them to speak up, but you have to give them a platform to feel comfortable enough to speak out and to ask those questions. I think that's something that's really important. And maybe if you know somebody's on your team is like, is really shy, reach out to them individually. But I think it's that. And then it's also just, like I said earlier, is just giving them a sense of ownership and asking them, like, what do you think is the best way to implement this change? You know, what are your suggestions? And, you know, even if it's going roundtable, you know, again, offering them a piece of ownership, I think also helps them to feel more comfortable and more likely to make that change.
Sorry, Garrett, 1 second. Lily, when you're hiring people, do you look for that? Is that something that you would say, these people need to be able to speak up, they need to have some public speaking ability?
In my role, in my department's client services, so we are front facing with the client. So I absolutely need somebody with those skills, which may be a little bit different than IT.
Well, I know I don't necessarily, actually, I disagree with that. I feel like you would need these skills in IT just as much as you need them in customer success or any other aspect of the organization. If you see something wrong, you see something wrong and you got to fix it. Like, there's nothing, like, if let's say you've got a technological glitch that's causing you not to bill your clients properly, like if somebody on the tech team notices, oh crap, we just noticed this glitch is going on here, we need to fix this because we're not billing properly. Like, shout it out, because if you don't shout it out, if you keep to yourself, you're leaving dollars on the table.
Yeah, that's something that I absolutely look for if I'm hiring someone. It is not yesterday's, you know, IT person with the headphones and the Mountain Dew and the pizza in the corner, right? We are business people first and technologists second.
Which I absolutely love. I love that concept. Because I guess because I've been in the industry for so long, I do see some of the old school, but I do definitely see that being a change just in the industry, you know, industry wide, is having that people that have those IT people that have those business skills as well, which I think is important.
Tonya, on this topic, what do you think causes people to not feel the sense of security to ask questions? What do you think is like a contributor to people not feeling that sense of psychological security or safety to like raise their hand and step up and either raise the flag on something or ask questions to clarify?
I would say that it's probably a leader who isn't having inclusive environments for their employees, making them feel like that they can raise their hand. You know, some people may come in and just give direction and then just walk out of the room, but they're not really gauging what the employees need to say, and taking into account, right, what are the small wins that they could help drive their team to success by listening to them. And so, you know, again, I think creating that inclusive environment is very important.
I like that. I
And
don't think
listening. I want to add listening because I think sometimes, you know, we're not listening and hearing what's being told to us and how we could help.
I like that.
I
I
do
do.
too.
Oh yeah, jump in. I would just say, like, I don't think any leader comes into an environment thinking like, oh, I want to create an uninclusive environment and one where I'm not actively listening. I think most leaders would try to aspire to being a good listener and create an inclusive environment. I guess, Damian, Lily, are there like subtle things that maybe leaders do that maybe they don't catch themselves doing, but because they do it, it creates an environment where the team member doesn't feel comfortable stepping up or asking questions?
Oh, that's an easy one. Act like you know it better than the person that you hired. And that's something that I really have to be watchful for because again, I grew up organically, right? I started as a field service tech, so I had to go out and install software, install servers, and all of that, and kind of work my way up. And done software development, QA, you know, business analysis, all of that. And so I've kind of touched all of those points. And you know, I know a lot, but I don't know it all. And I have to be very keenly aware of that there are people that are bringing things to the table that, you know, I can't default to my idea as best. And I think that's a real pitfall of someone, especially in IT, because you'll see it quite a bit. People will come up through the ranks of engineering and then get into management and think they know better. And so we have to be very self-aware when it comes to that.
I like that you're saying being self-aware because I'm very process driven and I like to execute, right? So give me a plan, here it is, and let's go get it. And Garrett, I think you're right. I don't think leaders walk in being intentional by not creating an inclusive environment. But when you walk in and you're like, here's the plan, here's the goals, let's go execute. I think that's when you kind of stalemate your employees from speaking up because they think you're just in there to execute the plan when that's not the intention. But that may just be the way that you process or the way that you lead.
Yeah, I agree with both Tonya and Damian as well. I think having that feeling of inclusivity and that just really that team environment, and knowing each of your employees and how they work, you know, how I may work with one person is going to be different than how I work with another person, just based off of the different personalities. But I think just making them all feel comfortable, and comfortable to speak up, but then also, you know, as Damian said, just being acutely aware of yourself, and our actions, our interactions with your employees as well. I think that's really important.
Damian, you bring up this really, I like you just kind of sharing, like you came up through the ranks where you were installing servers, you were doing all these things. One thing that I often see in a lot of organizations is companies will promote individual contributors into management positions because of their ability to individually contribute and not necessarily give them the tools they need to thrive and succeed as leaders within the organizations. And then, you know, 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years go by, and maybe they get a little dabbling of leadership development here and there, but they are still leading these teams. And it's almost like by osmosis, because you've been in the position for so long, you feel like your habits are serving you and making the team even better, when I think sometimes leaders develop bad habits and their team thrives and succeeds in spite of those bad habits. But the leader thinks that, oh, you know, this tough love, or, oh, this, you know, I tell you one time to do something and you get it done model, or whatever, this lack of inclusive environment, you know, it's worked for me up until now, so it's going to keep working me into the future. And it's like, well, you've got a really great team that's helped you achieve some things, and there are probably more that you could achieve, but because of this mentality, because you've been doing it so long and your unwillingness to change has hurt you. Would you ever say that that's something that you've observed as well?
I can tell you that I was not a good leader. I mean, if I again become self-reflective, right? Wasn't really a good leader until 22, 23 years into my tenure as a technology leader, where I kind of dropped all pretenses, dropped the pride, and really started to listen, and not just listen to the people above me, but listen to the people, unfortunately, I would say beneath me, the people that I was leading, right? That change, it just opened my eyes. I dropped all of my history and said, okay, I'm going to learn how to be a leader for real. And I sought out people to train me, listen to the people that I was leading. Hey, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? And I really feel that I'm a more effective leader for it. And it's just, again, dropping the pretense, dropping the pride, and saying, okay, I am now a product of my failures more than my successes. And I'm going to learn from them instead of standing on all of that history.
What catalyzed that? What started that journey of introspection? That's a great story, and I'm curious to learn more.
I would say an effective leader that came in over me and I really respected, and said, I want to be like this person. So, I found someone that I could really respect and saw their personality differences from mine I would never adopt, but the way that they were effective and the way that they were getting things done, it just really intrigued me. And so it was just that little switch of, hey, I need to be doing things better. I see someone doing it right. I want to be doing it that way.
Tonya, Lily, did you ever have like a mentor experience like that?
Yeah, I actually think I've had a mentor at every job that I've been in, at every company. I think that's something that's really important. And it's not that you have to have one at every single company you're at, but I think having a mentor, somebody who is in a position above you, and I look for somebody that I strive to have their leadership skills. And I've been lucky enough that, I've really been able to find those people, especially in this most recent position. But I agree that it's really easy to think you're doing a good job, when you've been doing it for so long, but without continuing to hone in on your skill set as a leader, on your leadership skills. I think that you may not be as great as you are. For me, I do some weekly and monthly self-assessment. I have my one-on-ones with each of my employees, on a weekly basis, but they also do a monthly assessment of their how they think of themselves as employees, as well as how they think of me as a manager. And when I first started doing that, it was really surprising to see the results. But it's also helped me fine tune my skill set and how I work with each person individually. And I think just how effective I am as a leader in general.
How about you, Tonya? Did you ever
That's through AIM, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I think you have to have someone that you're just trying to aspire to be more like. And finding those people that I always say, like, fill your cup and make you better. They've also got to challenge you and be authentic in the feedback, the mentors that you choose. While you want them to be like you, you also want them to be very honest, to give feedback that will help you grow.
I want to go back to the topic of leadership and maybe the subtle things that we could do that might stifle people's curiosity or ability, excuse me, to ask questions when they're unclear. And one thing that I think a lot of leaders do is, whether one thing that in my personal diatribe, this is the rock that I stand on, I hate the concept of when you ask someone how they're doing, the answer being busy. Busy is the worst thing you could possibly communicate to somebody, because what you're saying is, I've got so much stuff going on in my world, I don't have time for whatever you're about to bring to me right now. Whether you actually are communicating that intentionally or not, that's how other people are perceiving it. And I see this all the time when I'll ask someone, hey, how are you doing? Someone says, oh, I'm busy. Busy is not a feeling. You could be overwhelmed. You could be stressed out. You could be frustrated. You could be angry. You could be confused on a scenario. But busy is an assumption. It forces me, the receiver of your busyness, to assume what is going on in your world, and that whatever I have to bring to you is not worth that time. And I think that's something that if we can overcome as leaders, it can just really help stimulate an inclusive environment where people feel comfortable speaking up. I mean, I don't know, Tonya, Damian, Lily, have you ever encountered the busy scenario? That's my personal soapbox. I hate when people say that they're busy.
I think if you get to that point, you have to acknowledge, maybe I need to stop and take my team out of this work environment and maybe do an outing, a team building, get them out of that atmosphere to where they think, they're so swamped that they, need to be more open. But I know recently I kind of gauged some of my employees and asked them about a holiday event. And, the one thing they said is, oh, we like, the dinner and stuff like that. That's nice. But when we went out in an environment where the leaders were just themselves and opening up, I felt more comfortable coming back into work because I now understand they're just normal people like me. And so I think it bridged that, that leadership / employee where they felt more comfortable after having that outing.
Jamie, Lily, what are your thoughts on the concept of like busyness? Or when
I don't know if I
yeah,
I guess I don't read so much into it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, first off, I suppose I should know the answer. If the answer is going to be I'm busy, as their leader, I should know that before I ask it, right? So in one sense, someone telling me I'm busy, I would agree with you that I should know it beforehand and I should expect it, and so it shouldn't really be something that they reply with. On the other hand, sometimes I'm busy and I'm going to tell somebody I'm busy, and maybe I just don't read so much into it. And I hope people largely aren't, frustrated or tired or upset. How you doing, to me really is a more personal question than professional question. I don't know. And maybe I'm trailing off a little bit. I just don't think that, hey, I'm really busy right now. Okay. I don't get upset about that at all. So.
Well, I guess maybe the flip side, because I would say organizational hierarchy wise, like whether we like it or not, we are conditioned to respect those that are in authority. So if you are my boss, if I hear you say that you are busy, I'm going to feel, oh my gosh, I don't want to like disturb my boss because he or she is really busy right now. And I don't know if I want to bring anything up to them that might be of concern, or I don't necessarily know how to judge, like what's something that I need to raise the fire alarm on, or what's something that I need to tuck back for later.
Well, that's just the art of talk, right? That's the art of communication and facilitating something that's two-way, and people can experience that vulnerable trust. And for me, it's I hate again, I pound it into people's head. Hey, I'm one of you. I'm one of the team, and I have good days. I have bad days, and I first and foremost always try to be professional, right? So if I hired you or you hired me, right, we both know what we're doing, so that's in my head first before I open my mouth. In the same vein, I don't know, I just allow for it. Not quite sure where I want to take my response, Garrett, but it's I kind of separate that personal and professional idea, where we're here to do a job, we're all accountable to each other. And in the same vein, I'm interested in you as a person, right? And so if you are busy, if you are frustrated, if you are tired, I want to know.
I like it. No, I think your response makes a ton of sense. And this is why I like having this agreement on the panel, is this makes it a whole lot more interesting. You can see both sides of the coin. That's great. But Lily, what are your thoughts on the concept of busyness?
Well, if I have an employee who says that to me in response, when I'm asking, I really want to know, how are you doing? And it could be if you're busy and you're overwhelmed and you respond to me that you're busy, I'm going to take that as you're very overwhelmed with work. So how can I help? Let's sit down, let's go through the list, let's prioritize. And I really will dig in and do my best to try to help them, because I do take that as a cry out for, somebody who's just really overwhelmed with the amount of work they have. But I also think that, Tonya, you had talked about taking the team out of the work environment, and really being able to show them, you're a real person. I think that is a really important concept of making sure your team knows you're one of them. You're not this, I sit in the office in the corner and everybody else is out on the floor. You're not separated from them, that you're one of them. And I think that's a concept that's really important. In fact, we have an office in the Philippines, and I had an opportunity to visit there, to visit that office a few years ago, and saw that everybody was just so incredibly efficient. It was like going into an office and just hearing the hum. It was beautiful. They were so efficient. They wanted to help each other. They wanted to do all the work. They were, listening to their leader. And so, I thought, what is so different here? Because this is really working compared to, what we saw at some of our offices in the US. And so what is really different here? And it's this feeling of a family environment. They don't just work. And I know this is so different than what we've been told, from the time we're starting off in our career is, oh, the people you work with aren't your friends. And in the Philippines, they're family and it works. And so for me, I wanted to really, our team camaraderie is just absolutely amazing. And we want to get to help each other. And so when we ask those kind of questions, how are you? It's a personal question. And they know it and we know it. And when I say, how can I help? They know I really mean it.
Oh, Lily, you bring up another hot button topic. Family.
Yeah, I want to jump on that one, Garrett.
When it comes to the team. What was that, Damian?
I said, I want to jump on that one for sure.
Jump in, Damian. I like it.
Yeah, that Lily, in certain circles, you get crucified for saying that nowadays, for sure. I tend to agree, but not really, and I'll tell you why. And again, I'm very open and honest with the people that work with me. I tell them, I'm gonna ring you for all I can get you for. I paid you what you asked, so I'm going to demand a lot. I'm going to stretch you. I'm going to make you uncomfortable. And I'm going to expect the best, and I'm probably going to expect more than you're capable of, because I want to grow you as an employee. In the same vein, I want you to take me for all you can get, right? And I like to think my best success as a leader is for someone to grow beyond my capability to keep them. In other words, they leave because I can't afford to pay them anymore. That's not really family, right? And so the other thing is I can't be afraid of promoting someone over someone else because of merit, and I can't be afraid of letting someone go who's not keeping up, because they are not family, and it's tough.
And I agree with that to an extent, in terms of just because we have this great, amazing team environment, it doesn't mean that I'm going to be an ineffective leader. And I think especially with these newer generations, really just starting with millennials and going to Gen Z, and now what's
whatever
the next
it is,
generation?
Gen Y.
There's another Gen Y, Gen Z. I don't know all these different generations. But really, especially with the younger employees, I mean, I think having I'm the leader, you're the employee is really kind of an old school mentality. And that's coming from, I'm a Gen Xer, and that was, that would have worked. That worked with me. That did work with me. But as my team gets younger and younger, I feel the need to adjust how I lead them. And, they're a little bit more sensitive or have a different way of thinking about work than my generation did.
But do you see them wanting to be family, or because tell you what, Gen Z and millennials, they're the ones that I hear say, we are not your family, you are not our family. This is a professional relationship.
yeah, those are the ones for me that don't produce. So I guess it just depends on the industry you're in.
Fair point.
Yeah, no, that is fascinating. I think there could be a happy medium in all this. Like, I don't think you have to be family to have an inclusive environment, because I don't know, my thought is, if I want to incorporate like the team on a decision that's coming up, if I say, hey, here are the factors that are coming at us right now. We got this factor, we got that factor, we got this factor. Based on this, what are you thinking our next step of action could be? Doesn't have to be a familial relationship to engage in that dialogue. I think it could be a team relationship to engage in the dialogue.
Well, first and foremost, it's a respectful relationship. Like I said, if I think, Garrett, you are a professional, you know what you're doing, you've been doing this for a while, there is a reason that you are standing here with me before I open my mouth, then hopefully the next thing that I speak is respectful to you, because I assume that you know what you're talking about.
Connie, what are your thoughts on team, family, non-family? Yeah, tell us your thoughts on this.
I think it's hard. I came from a large corporation, in the Walmart world, and I think they all do believe their family, mainly because, right, you're at work for long hours with the same people. And so I think you get that feeling that you become friends, and you have someone who's asking you how your day is, and maybe how your family's doing. So I grew up where culture, I think, is important. And Damian, I hear you in the tech world. I've got a lot of tech friends. They kind of like to be on their own. They don't want that family type of environment. But then I think there are other industries that it works really well. So I think it just depends on where you're working.
Ooh, I like it. I like it.
I-
Very. Oh yeah, jump in, Lily.
I agree with both Tonya and Damian. I want to say, I think he hit on something that I think is so incredibly crucial as a leader, which is training somebody to be able to like be promoted or move on or replace you even. That to me is what makes a really great leader, is when you are training somebody to replace you, or that can go move on beyond that your department or that position, or even go to a different company. I think that to me is what signifies that person's a really great leader.
I like it. This is a good dialogue. I'm glad that we're having this conversation about this. But the last question I would like to ask you all is, what is a popularly held belief about leadership that you disagree with? And so when I say popularly held belief, I mean something that you believe over 50% of leaders would say, I believe in this, and you say, nope, I don't believe in that, and here's why. So what's a popularly held belief about leadership that you disagree with? Who wants to go first?
For me, it's that, and you touched on it briefly before, individual contributors through tenure are capable of management. As much as we fight against it and as we see the opposite, it is usually tenure that dictates your rise through the ranks, not your capability. And I would say that, even if you corner someone and say, oh no, I promote people based on this skill or that skill, it usually ends up being they were promoted because they were there a long time. And I think that there is a path that needs to be made for individual contributors. In technology, it's pretty simplistic, because you can go from junior, mid, senior, lead, principal, distinguished kind of architect, right, up that path, and then up this path you've got analyst, coordinator, manager, senior manager, director, it's just that those two paths always tend to meld, and I think it's wrong. I think that those paths need to diverge, and you need to have a path to success all the way to the top as an individual contributor versus as a people manager, because some people just aren't cut out to be people managers.
You know what? That's awesome. I totally agree with that. But I also think so many companies promote people based on tenure and not based on the actual ability to lead people or give them the skills and equipment to do the best leading people. I think leadership is a skill, like shooting a basketball or any other skill. practice and training can help you become better, but not just putting someone in the position without any skill, practice, or training and expect them to be great is a recipe for failure. But I think I would even take it even one step further of we need to glorify or create a path where people can feel like they're growing in an individual contributor role. Like if you're great at selling widgets, keep selling those widgets. I don't need to promote you to sales manager. If you are an incredible salesperson and you love going out and selling widgets, whatever it may be, keep selling those widgets. If you don't want to lead a sales team, but because of societal pressures, maybe conditioning, maybe because this is the only path that organization has given to you for how you can grow up in the organization and make more money, you think, you know what, I guess I got to go to be sales manager or, sales vice president or chief revenue officer or whatever the next steps are. But that is not always the best next step for an individual. And I think it creates almost an identity crisis because you feel maybe like you're being left behind if you're not working up that trajectory.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jared. I think for me, what has worked is having that, and it's the number one thing, if I were to give any kind of advice to up-and-comers and people starting new positions, is discuss your career path with your leader. So your leader knows where you want to go, but also as a leader, I know where this person wants to go. And I have to always be thinking, like I don't want them to be stuck in this position forever. So what is their career path based on their skill set and their desire to learn? What is that career path? That's the number one thing I can say is discuss career paths. I think that's so important.
And probably even keep that as an open, ongoing dialogue because
Yeah,
what was
absolutely,
your
you
desired
should.
career path 5 years ago might not be your desired career path now.
100%.
So Lily, Tonya, what's a popularly held belief about leadership that you disagree with?
Go ahead, Tonya.
I don't know if I was on the right path, and I'm not going to say it's 50%, but I'm going to say some leaders lead by fear. And I think when that happens, it keeps people from taking risks. And I think that's something I disagree with, that leadership style. I think we've all had people that maybe we've seen come into leadership roles to create that change management, and they do it by putting fear into the other employees. And so I'm not going to say it's popular, but I definitely disagree with it.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I see a lot of leaders who lead through fear because people sometimes assume, well, if they don't fear me, how are they supposed to respect me? And I think that's a flawed mentality, but I definitely have seen it happen. So I think that makes tons of sense.
Yeah, I 100% agree with Tonya. I think that's, and I'm glad you pointed it out, but I completely agree with that. And I think also for me, and I kind of touched on it earlier, is that your employees are not your friends. Tonya mentioned earlier, we're working these long hours. I'm with the people I work with more than I'm with my family. And well, Monday through Friday. And so I need to be able, I can't go to work and not like the people that I work with. I have to be able to like them. And that's, as much as I'm looking at different skills when I'm hiring somebody, I'm also looking at how will they fit within our team culture. I think that's something that's really important.
Yeah. I want to take just a little bit of a different take. I agree that it should not be a fear-based mentality at all when it comes to our relationships. There should be a healthy fear or a healthy respect or a healthy uncomfortableness with failure. Not fear of mistakes, right? Because we need to give people room to make mistakes and grow. And that means that they're trying new things. But there should be a healthy fear of failure. Hey, this has to succeed, right? We need to get this done. Here's why. Here's what's going to happen if it doesn't. We're going to waste 30 or 40 billion dollars industry wide and spend. And so that means next year we can't go to bowling or Topgolf or out to dinner or whatever, right? I think there is a place for it. Again, not in interpersonal relationships, but fear of not succeeding, right? There needs to be a drive there.
Yeah, I like that, Damian, but I I think you explained the fear by identifying there's consequences, right? If we don't achieve this, this is going to be the consequence. But have you ever had a leader, lead by fear where, half the team just dreaded going in because they were just a hammer type of leader, manager that was there to do a job and it was going to be their way or no way? Have you ever experienced that?
Oh, absolutely. So, way back when in my history, I worked with a lot of companies dealing with software, right? And so I've been able to observe all kinds, and usually they would lose half of their team or they would lose their job. They might get it done, and that's usually what happens. Is it's a short-term gain, long-term loss, right? Because they'll fear everyone into performing, and they'll meet a deadline, and then you'll get the dreaded, I'm here for a paycheck, or I'm not here anymore, or they're gone.
I like that.
I agree with that.
Damian, I like the part about understanding the consequences. I think that actually is something that a lot of employees, and I think it's probably the fault of the leadership. Like I'll hear some leaders say, oh, how can the employees not understand like the consequences of the economics of the business? Like when the company's going great, everyone's like, bonuses, I want bonuses, we're killing it. But when the company is not doing great, it's like bonuses, I still want my bonuses. I have an expectation that I'm getting bonuses because I don't care if the business economically is doing well or not. But I think there's a element of it's on the leader to communicate, this is what's going on in the business right now, and here's some of the implications because of maybe some of the risks that we took or some of the economic factors that are coming in at play that are causing us to be in this situation.
Yeah, just kind of a part B to my one thing would be not sharing. You don't have to share every financial with every employee, but sharing financials in summary form with all of the company to know how we're doing can help you avoid things like you just discussed. Why aren't we getting bonuses this year? Well, we didn't do so well. Well, what could we have done in the past? And if you're a bit more, I think people don't give honesty enough credit when it comes to how we're doing. I mean, if the company's doing poorly, I want to know ahead of time. And it could be that I want to be more invested in its success, or, hey, I'm owed enough, I gave enough where I can go look for another job because I know I'm going to lose mine. Why is it that we expect everyone to give us 2 weeks notice, but it's a surprise when we let them go?
And you don't want to wait till the fourth quarter and say, let's get this right, and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, so that keeping all of those cards close to the chest, very long held belief. I do see some companies breaking away from it, but I do think it's something that needs to change.
Very true.
Awesome. Well, Tonya, Damian, Lily, this was a great pre-symposium panel. Thank you all for being here and sharing your insight and wisdom with our audience. If you're watching this and you're thinking to yourself, I want to meet these three incredible leaders, come to our upcoming executive symposium, October 26th, 6 to 8:30, held at Accenture's Innovation Lab. We'd love to see you there. I'll post the link to RSVP in the comments of this video. But thanks for your time, everybody. Thanks for being here. Have a great rest of your day.